Welcome to another episode, number 4. I'm joined by Tim Kidgell, and I'm so grateful that you're here. We get to, thank you. We get to chat a little bit more about interesting conversations and topics, and just explore. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. It's good to be here. It's been a while since I've had a conversation like this, so I'm stoked for it. I, for the last couple of years, have run my own consultancy with regards to relationship management and mediation. So
That's cool.
I consider myself fairly experienced with regards to relationships.
Yeah.
Not just like a marriage type, but within families, within businesses, so business partners.
Oh, yeah.
So I get involved in conflict management and things like that, as well as like soft skills and upskilling people that way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very cool. I think we'd get along just fine because I do like those sort of things, Like,
Okay, cool.
I've worked with you at some point
Yes.
in ministry, and I've seen how you operate in workspaces and how you carry yourself just as an individual. I got to experience that, and I gleaned quite a bit from you. And I remember you do like these classes with us, with let me try and bring to mind freedom in Christ and stuff like that. And like I remember just how you did it and how it was like a nice journey, like, and with someone who understands it well and someone who understands people well, and how to introduce such things because they're very confronting, and especially that one.
Relationships get tricky.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking on relationships, actually, if I can begin here with this conversation, I want to read something. I want to read something that will take us on a journey of how we introduce relationships in our lives, or how relationships are introduced. So,
Okay.
with meeting new people, when we meet someone new, you meet the entire journey, their experiences, their facades, and like whoever they put up in your first encounter. That's what you meet, right? And the layers of their true self unfold with time. You witness their self-discovery in real time, the inner struggles that they wrestle with, their aspirations and their desires. But this happens with time. But when you meet the person for the very first time, there's like this wall or facade, or like what they want to show you, or what they feel the need to show you, because I mean, that's how they've managed to survive all along. It's like a mechanism. And then, through them also we meet people that they admire. They like the people they watch on TV, the people that they aspire to be like, community leaders and stuff like that. So we get to, because they'll start to mimic them, obviously, And so meeting someone can be an incredible gain. It can also be very dangerous, or like a challenge, because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into when you get a relationship, and who you're getting in the relationship with. You only find that out with time.
Correct.
So I'd like for us to like really try and break that down a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if you...
So within that statement is like this world that we can talk about, and could probably do a podcast series on it.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. When you meet someone for the first time, you're meeting someone who has collected a bunch of life experiences.
Yes.
Many of them might be different to your experiences, depending on how they grew up, depending on the kind of family they grew up in, how they were educated, the friends they had, the wins that they got in life, but also the losses and the
Yes.
traumas and all of that. When you look on social media nowadays, I know your feed tends to give you what you normally look for, but I get a lot in my feed around dealing with trauma.
Yes.
And a lot of how to work through various losses or various disappointments, and how to work on your mindset and things like that. So when you meet someone, you're meeting the entire collection of who they are,
Yes.
their thoughts, their feelings, and all of that. But as you say, there are these masks that people put on. We all do.
Yes.
It's not something I think that we're always conscious of. This is going to be a subconscious
Yes.
thing. But when you meet someone, they will also be presenting a certain side of them to you up front. And so I know for me, I tend to, if I meet someone new, I like to take them at face value.
Yes.
You know, it's always good to be aware that there's going to be certain ways you present yourself.
Yeah.
You go on a first date, you're putting best foot forward. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Okay. You meet someone in business and you're hoping to
Close the
create
deal.
some sort of synergy, or you're wanting to close a deal or something like that. There is no ways you're going to be fully presenting all of who you are.
Yeah.
You're going to be putting certain sections front and center,
Yes.
and other sections you're going to be pulling away.
Withholding a little bit.
Now, not all of that is conscious, as I've said, but not all of that is a bad thing either.
Yeah.
You know, so often, as I've worked with different people, like there can be a lot of hurt that comes from trusting someone right off the bat
Yeah.
with too much of who you are, and they end up hurting you, or that just backfires in a bad way, you know. And so there, you kind of also, you get those friends sometimes, you know, you get introduced to a new person.
Yes.
You're at a dinner table, maybe there's quite a few, they like the new person at the group, everyone welcomes them. But like from minute one, they are just oversharing on their life and how like uncomfortable that is.
Yeah.
So that's also, it's like there's a certain amount that you want to hold back and develop relationship and develop trust.
Yes.
You know, I think that the problem comes in when we all having our own issues, whether that be of self-worth or of something that's happened that causes you to hold back too much.
Yes.
You know, and so the mask stays in place. There's not a process, as you said, this thing happens over time that we get to know people. There isn't that process of slowly dropping this mask or slowly letting people see who you really are. That just stays up, and obviously that is really detrimental to developing deep relationship with people.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm getting is that it's best to understand that when you meet someone new, you'll probably get a version that they put up, right?
Yep.
And then you have to sort of be ready for the unraveling, and also there's an understanding of a time period or a timeline where certain things will probably like come out, and if they haven't come out by then you are exercising relationship probably in not a very healthy way. Like the holding back is, I'm saying this to go as an individual, for people themselves, they can look into their hearts and go, okay, this is not the awkward stage where this is not the awkward stage at the first dinner table where I'm exposing everything.
Yeah.
But I've been with this person, or I've known this person for like 7 months to 8 months, and I can feel that I'm not where the relationship should probably be. Like I'm still holding back. Okay. That too can also manifest itself in a bit of a unhealthy way. So the big idea is to sort of gauge where where you probably are with a person, and be realistic about it as well. Like, I just met this person, I can't overshare. I've known this person for a while. Yes, I should in fact probably be comfortable to share around this person now, because that's what is going to make the relationship stronger as well.
Yeah.
So that they can see into you, and then you can feel like that relationship is also feeding you, because that's very important. It's nothing like being with someone all the time, but you feel like it's very shallow and you're not getting anything out of it in terms of comforts, in terms of an ear, a shoulder to cry on, things like that. They make a relationship be of value, So understanding that there's a timeline to how things unravel, and actually they should, and you should be vulnerable to do that. And with time, you get to understand who you can trust with what as well. So you're constantly observing that about the people that you're in a relationship with too.
Yeah.
All of those things are like, they happen subconsciously, obviously, for most people, but taking the time to think about them, maybe writing down some of the relationships that you have in your life, and going like, how connected am I really with this person? How connected do we look actually, the reality versus what you both put up as well at some point is, and understanding those things about yourself and your relationships, I think, is very important. But we often don't have those conversations to go, hey, this is the reality. What are we doing about it? And what tools can we put in place? Yeah.
I think just to kind of build on what you've been saying already, I think the one thing what people need to realize is that relationship is risk, right? It's not, there's no surefire, okay, I can bank on this one and off we go. We're all human. We all have our own sense of insecurities on different things, or our own ideas and opinions. And that means that because you're developing a relationship with someone, and that doesn't matter whether it's a friendship or business relationship, there are going to be points at which you clash.
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily need to separate you at all, but there are going to be moments of navigating difference. So relationship is risk, because depending on how that moment goes, it either goes really well and brings you even closer together, or it goes really badly and hopefully we don't get too hurt, but there are cases where, hey, we get cut up, or it just separates. And so for me, like when I look at that, I think, for healthy relationships to exist, we kind of have to start with ourselves.
Yes.
I
like that.
It's one of those things where, like, if we know that there's certain wounding we've got. Now, very often that to start with is very much underneath. But if we were to take a look at ourselves just at a cursory look, going like, what are our trigger points?
Yes.
Like, where do I suddenly redline on some specific behavior, or if someone says this sort of thing, or I'm super sensitive to criticism. But where are those trigger points, those consistent ones you see yourself like popping at, or ones that consistently cut you deep?
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have this massive wounding, but it does mean, hey, maybe there is something in that I need to take a look at myself and just heal up. Because in every friendship, in every relationship, like I mentioned just now, there's going to be times where you're going to have difference, and sometimes that hurts.
Yes.
But that doesn't need to be the end of the friendship.
No.
In fact, it can be built on, but it's very tough to repair. It's very tough to build if we're continuing having these kind of like bleeding wounds.
Yes.
That continually tend to put a stain on our different relationships. And so I would say start there without going too deep, but that's probably where I'd start, is going, if we're really wanting to work on healthy relationships, we've got to work on ourselves first. And realize that, hey, we all have work. We all have our own perceptions of things, And so as much as people put masks up, and what we see are those people's masks, we also, with our own life experiences, have filters that we look at
absolutely.
people through. And so it's not just those people's masks, we've also got our own filters. And that's where it gets like all super tricky. So we're kind of going in detail here, but I mean, just to give you an example to make it a bit more clear, if I, as an example, am very low on my self-worth, I might be way more quiet in meeting new people, and way more reserved, and worried about whether I'm going to be accepted or not by these people, or worried about what they might think of me, because I can't have another comment come at me which cuts me again in that self-worth area. But maybe I'm going to be meeting someone new, and they have the same problem. Or maybe it's one slightly different, but they've got, let's say it's a self-worth problem, but the way they deal with that is a mask. And their mask might be, well, I've got to really come across as strong and confident, or potentially even a little bit more aggressive, so that people don't come at me. If I look at them through my filter of self-worth, I might take a look at them and go, wow, that's arrogant. Wow, their behavior is arrogant, or wow, like, why would they say that? That's just like really aggressive. And if I were to like make a judgment on them, let's say it's a first meeting, but a judgment on them based on their initial behavior, not taking into account, there might be a mask here that's hiding something deeper. Like it makes me a lot shorter in patience.
Yes.
And I tend to get a bit more judgy then because I'm not aware that I'm also looking through filters.
Yes.
You know, so one of the sayings that stuck with me from so young, because I when I grew up, I rarely dealt with self-confidence in terms of lack of.
Yeah.
And one person said this to me, and I've never forgotten it. But they said, like, to the insecure person, self-confidence looks like arrogance.
Yeah.
You know, and that's purely because that for a person who's insecure, that the filters they look through would interpret people who are confident
As
potentially
arrogant.
as arrogant.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that happens 100% of the time, but it's just such a good example of understanding that
How
we've
we-
got filters and we tend to put up our own masks as well. And so I think to create self-awareness around potentially the filters that you look at other people through, as well as the masks that you put up,
That you put up.
you know,
like
and to
that.
actually have a real, like, conscious think through those masks, because
Yeah.
once you have identified that, and the best way to do that is probably going to people that you trust
Yes.
and go, hey, like, when you first met me, what was your
Yeah.
first impression? What was your first impression, or what did you think, and how has that changed? Because sometimes our masks can be helpful,
Yes.
job interviews and things like that, first dates, but sometimes our masks are really unhelpful and prevent us from moving forward and connecting with
That's
people.
very
you know?
important right there. I like how you've put a very balanced thought to this, because I do think we tend to, like, if a person is, like, aware enough to see like behaviors that come off as not so good in a person, we tend to pull out without thinking about ourselves. Hey, how am I interpreting this person's behavior, and is it actually on a basis that is founded on reality, or is it founded on just my experience of the world and how I see things? So starting with yourself is very important. And then I just go, because this is a human problem, it's everybody has it. I go, okay, then how do we try to tackle it? It's going, I put my best foot forward in every situation. So it means when I come out into the world, I present the best of me, and that best of me will also bring out the best in other people. Have genuine encounters, and listen to people, and, like, really, like, try and engage people on a level that is authentic. Even the effort itself of doing that will actually bring the better out of a person too, because they're going to see that this person is putting down their walls and being vulnerable. I mean, obviously, you still got to have, like, some kind of like, I don't know, good gauge of, like, what's too much in doing that, you know. Be a little bit wise. But I do value I do value the opinion that you still need to understand that could be your interpretation. And even so, like, let's say someone has some red flags or something like that, I think you can still, based on how you behave around them or how you interact with them, you can still just bring out the best out of them. Like, there are people where you can easily recognize that person is dealing with self-confidence. And then you go, okay, because they're dealing with that problem, let me be like a beacon of hope to them in terms of that, and really bring out energy and confidence in them without even them knowing. Like, compliments here and there, you know, like assurance here and there, like more than you would another person that doesn't probably need that. I think because this is a problem that a person probably picked up as a child. This is an innocent child that picked up habits, and they've grown with them, and now they make them not such a nice experience to be around.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we now, especially those who can see it? That's why I want to, like, put some lights on this. Is to go, think about our interactions, think about our relationships.
Yeah.
How can I now? Because I've thought about it. I've written down all the people that I meet, and then I go, hey, actually, when I'm around that person, they seem to be this way. But I've seen them in another space where they're, like, more in the back, like, conformed and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so it means that maybe there's probably something there. Now, how can I behave around them or be around them in a loving way that counteracts the need to be that way, you know. And actually what you'll find is that a person is fighting that thing. No one loves to be in that position, and you give them the space and the freedom to exercise coming out of that, and eventually it may become a lifestyle for them.
Look, so yes, I agree with you. I think, you know, this really does, at a bottom line level, talk to loving our neighbors.
Yes.
It really does. You know, if we're truly going to show genuine love to people, number one, it has to be authentic.
Yes.
You can't be doing it through a mask of "I'm doing this for you" and look at me or whatever. It's got to be authentic. People pick up when it's not.
Yes,
you
they
know?
do.
But to meet people where they're at is so important. You know, I think there'll be, if I were to look at my own life and look at some of the relationships I've had, and I'm talking more genuine friendships here. A lot of them were guys who reached out to me. I would never have reached out, but because I was battling with self-confidence, I was battling with whether people would accept me or not, and things that they were the ones that reached out and showed genuine care and went, hey, like, we really want to get to know you. And no doubt I had masks and almost like defenses. I wouldn't even call them masks. I say defenses. But when genuine love is shown, those slowly break down. And so for those people, I think, especially some of your listeners who are going, hey, how do I impact people around me? I think it really is important to go, hey, let's start on a basis of authentically loving those around us. And that's just by being really genuine in your interaction with them. So again, like whatever masks you have and you have, like, some of those can drop.
Yes.
You know, some of those can drop in order to connect with other people.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you know that you really are genuinely trying to love someone through something, then you will also have grace for their masks.
Yes.
And grace for their behavior. And understanding. And it doesn't mean like we get to just say, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And just kind of explain away their behavior sometimes. But it definitely should impact the amount of grace and patience we have with them and working with them, and slowly developing trust, because that's what relationships are. I mean, if you're wanting to push a friendship into deeper water, and by that I mean that in a good way, like a deepened connection with someone, the only way you do that is trust.
Trust, yes, absolutely.
If you look at marriages, the deepest hurt comes from break of trust.
Yes.
And so trust is something that's built over time, and trust is something that's only built when I can entrust you with something of me, and knowing that that is safe.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's responsibility on my part to go on a journey of learning to trust others with parts of me, and maybe it's a small part to start with, and see what they do with that, and slowly grow that and go, okay, this person's genuinely taking responsibility for their side of the relationship. Let me see if I can't invest more of myself. Let me show them more of who I am. You know, and so that would be the journey. And at the point that friendship, where that person maybe cannot accept certain parts of you anymore, well, that's probably the level to which that friendship will stay until somehow that trust is mended. But that's why I said relationship is risk earlier, because that's what it is. It's going, I'm going to entrust you. So, you know, some of the deepest friendships I've got, I can literally be myself.
Yes.
You know, and while I've done public speaking and things like that, there's a certain persona that comes with that.
Yeah.
And I guess another word for that would be mask, because there's a certain way you want to be able to speak to people and have them still hear you. At home, I'm a bit of a clown. And so those closest to me will get to see a part of me that other people don't. And why? Because it's a safe place for me to just like mess around and be a fool,
and be yourself,
at home, and not be judged for that. And so the deeper a friendship gets, the more or the closer a friendship gets, or relationship, romantic or otherwise, like the deeper that is, the more you need to have yourself invested in it.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
understand?
Yeah, I agree. I think the greatest tragedy would be to live from, let's say, 15 years old to like 45 years old. And
I'm 43.
yeah,
Careful what you say.
well, like between those years to have friends but not truly connect with them
Yeah.
because you're afraid of certain things,
Yeah.
or they're doing the same, and you're not really in true deep relationships. And because I think those years are like monumental for relationships. That's where you get to deepen relationships and meet people, and and it should be part of the human experience. And so I think it would be such a tragedy if people get to a certain age and have never experienced like a deep relationship, and
Yeah,
like
100%.
gotten a chance to be loved and gotten a chance to love, because they just didn't have the awareness to mind their masks, and to and then there's also just like the logical kind of masking, as you're calling it that, to go like, if you go into the office, put on good shoes, put on nice pants, put on a shirt, and smell good, groom well, all of those things. That's sort of putting your best foot forward in terms of a work environment type thing. So like, those are also things that you gotta be able to distinguish and understand. And then at home, you obviously want that to be the most free space that you can be. Like,
Yeah, if I want to wear baggies and vests, I can.
yeah,
I'm
you
not going
want
to get
to,
judged.
you
Yeah,
want, you
100%.
want that. You want to be able to be loud and be yourself, And then with your friends, you also want a healthy level of that. You also want a healthy level of boundaries, like there's certain things that might cross a boundary with one of your friends if you do them, and expressing the level of freedom that you might at home. So those are all the things that a human being sort of has to navigate. And I think it's important for us to understand that for ourselves going out into the world, and then understand it for the world coming into our world. That will help us to have empathy, help us to understand people, and help us to, further the journey of the friendships along
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you were talking about the shoes and presenting the way you
Yeah.
present yourself, I think sometimes we do end up building a life around us that to a certain degree is a mask.
Yes.
Like, I think how you present yourself is really, really important in a number of different circles. But when we take that to an extreme level, how we present ourselves now involves what we get involved with
Yes.
in our spare time, and what we do with our leisure time, and what our lifestyle looks like, and what kind of car we need to drive to uphold the image that we have created for ourselves.
Yes.
And that's well and good. But there are times when that stuff holds off on depth of relationship. And linking it back to the having gone through life and you haven't developed a strong relationship, man, your how you present yourself, the image is you show other people is really important. But if you have not developed deep friendship, that what is the worth of your presentation at the end of the day? As you've said, like, hey, 20s, 30s, 40s. Like, that's where we're meeting a lot of people and we're developing relationships. I hope you don't mind me adding this, but like, I think it's quite important, is that, when I hit mid-20s, that's where I really found faith again. And I actually had to cull some friendships. I had to lose a lot of them. And some of them were a decision I'd made based going, hey, if I'm going to take faith seriously now, then I'm going to have to live a certain way. And it cannot be the way I was living.
Yes.
And so there's a certain things where it's not so much like killing the friendship, but making distance is really important. And so there are friendships that don't last, and I think that is a whole nother topic on the kind of friends you choose and and what they need to be like if you still want them around in 20 years.
Yes.
And 100%. So that's, but as I look at myself now, I mean, being 43, I've had an opportunity to make friends in a number of different spheres, and a number of different social circles. But I only see like my close friendships only becoming more important, even into like 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
You know, because once you've developed trust with someone, those are the people you rely on when life gets tough.
Yeah.
Those are the people that really are important to you, and either being an anchor for you or a really good mirror, and to reflect things back at you. You know, we don't sharpen our who we are. We don't become stronger. We don't grow unless we're aware of the things we need to grow in.
Yes.
And so, without good friends to reflect that to you,
You're in trouble.
yeah, 100%. If you really want to grow as a person, and you're wanting to move towards becoming like Christ,
Yes.
if you're of faith, then you need a community around you. You need a strong community. But I love what you said around boundaries as well. I just want to touch on that quickly because, you know, for those people who aren't too experienced with relationships, there are levels of friendships and relationships. It's not like everyone gets to be your best friend. It's not like everyone gets to be the one person who knows all your deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah.
You know, there are different levels of friendship, and the intimacy, the level of vulnerability, in terms of I'm going to invest myself into this relationship and build trust.
Yes.
That changes based on the proximity of that person to
Absolutely.
you. And so, if trying to think of an example here, like I was watching some sports on the weekend at my old high school, and bumped into a couple of old high school mates.
Yeah.
And so good to see them again. You know, the kind of guys where you don't see them for years, but you know, when you say how's it, like it's like you had never ever separated. But I still wouldn't be talking to them about the struggles that I've faced in the last couple of years. It's just because I don't spend enough time with you to have developed
Sort of trust that you need.
sort of trust. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yes.
It's totally okay to have like a really close one or two mates that you really trust and who are there for you, and who you are there for as well.
Yes.
And you can be a rock when they need a rock. But to try and put too many people in that circle, you just can't spread yourself that thin. You know, there's a certain level of access that I give my time to, that I'll give a certain person time to, and that's going to be based on the proximity of that friendship. Like obviously the closer you are to me in relationship wise, the more access you have to my time and to my resources and that. But my time and resources are always going to be finite.
Yes.
So I can't spread that. And so I think there's something to be said for being wise about how much time you invest in any relationship. Obviously, if you're wanting to deepen that relationship, it's like dating. First meet a girl, first date. If that's gone well and you go for a second one, and that goes well, now what's going to happen? Now you're going to want to spend more time with that person to develop a deeper connection. And we need to be quite intentional about our friendships and about our relationships, not just the ones that are romantic in nature, but all of them going, hey, like where do I want this friendship to go? Because if I want it to go deeper, then I'm going to have to put my time into that.
Yeah.
You know, but it also means that I have the freedom to also say certain friendships, they're great people. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. But hey, if I'm happy with the friendship where it is, I don't need to invest more time.
Yeah.
You understand? Like we get to choose.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question I want to ask you as we end on that point, but there's also something I want to sort of say for younger people, and you can face it the right way at some point. But I think with young people, like they are going to make friends, like let's say from adolescent age into high school and going like all of that, they're going to make friends, and as they do that, they're going to have to navigate all of these things. There's predictors of good friends. Like someone who's dedicated to schoolwork, someone who's involved in sports, someone who's, there's indicators of where life is headed. Generally, it sums up who they might be as a person. And it is wise to find yourself in those spaces, because then you will most likely meet friends like that. There will, a businessman, if there are one, they will go to conventions and places where they will meet other businessmen. And the predictor is that they will end up striking a deal, or like finding work somehow with someone there. If a businessman spends their time in a, let me try to think of something bizarre, like a circus or something. You're going to find clowns there and donkeys. You're not going to find a business guy to work with. It's just the predictor is that that's improbable. So that's like, if I could share a nugget for people that are younger than me that I know will experience finding friends, because I've just recently done it as well, is that I look at people like Lucia and all of those guys, like those relationships or those friendships. When I met those people, there was indicators and predictors of, these are people that I can go on a bit of a journey with, and and the lifestyle that they have predicts that there's going to be success, there's going to be good friendships, there's going to be like a life enjoyed. And so I wanted to find myself in that space, and that's a good indicator for someone younger trying to navigate how I go about these relationships. And the question for you now, Tim, is sometimes you have a friend that you can pour yourself out into very well, but they don't necessarily do that. Is it the case that if you trust someone very deeply, is it supposed to be that they trust you back in that same way, or is it okay for one person to maybe find a little bit more comfort than the other in the relationship?
It's a really good question. A really good question. Before I get to that, the other thing when you're talking about like advice to young kids, just to add on to what you've said already, is that there's I can't remember who coined it first, but there's a phrase going around. It's gone through leadership circles and conferences and things like that. But it's, and show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future.
Yes.
And that is really, really true. Like, if you want to look at the kind of future you're going to have, look at the 5 closest friends that you have, because they're going to be your greatest influence. So 100% on that one. And then the other observation with mates and making mates, especially for those guys who are maybe high school and growing, is to understand that, you know what, in high school you're going to have a really wide range of mates. There's going to be this huge circle. And that's cool. And that really is cool. And, some of them you're going to stay in touch with and some you won't. But as you go through life, you're going to go to varsity, and there's going to be a bunch more mates.
Yes.
And so for the first, high school into, late 20s, early 30s, your circle of friends does
be quite
this.
wide,
But come 30s, when you start understanding what you want out of life, and you start aligning your life with your goals and going, all right, this is where I want to go, then your friendship circle will probably start tightening up.
Yeah.
Okay to have many friends, but in terms of who you'd call true friends, that circle probably starts tightening up, but the depth of those relationships go deep. And that's generally the pattern you see, is that as you get a little bit more selective about who gets to see the real you, those friendships, as long as we keep investing in them, are going to end up being the solid ones. And it's okay to have that smaller circle of friends as you go later into life. But back to your question, can you trust someone with a lot of you, and is it okay if they only trust you with a little bit back? I think it very much depends on the nature of the relationship. If you're wanting to walk a deep journey, so if I look at some of my mates who I've been colleagues with, guys who we've intentionally been able to go, guys, I'm really struggling. This is what I'm struggling with. Or, guys, I've got this problem, and there's an ugly part of me. I don't really want to show you, but I'm going to show you because I need some help. Those kind of friendships where you've been intentional building it, then you would expect there needs to be a two-way trust thing on this.
Yeah.
You know, how can I trust you anymore when I don't know anything about you?
Yeah.
You understand? And so there, you don't really want it to be too unbalanced, but it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
You know, I think when you start going into the relationships that become influential over your lifetime, marriage, yeah, absolutely, you need to be an open book, and they need to be an open book. Otherwise, there's an erosion of trust, which means there's a breakdown in connection and in communication. And so there are certain relationships which absolutely require it.
Yes.
You know, but a lot of what I've done over the last couple of years as was a lot of mentoring. You know, I absolutely love working with guys who are younger than me, even if they're early 30s. You know, there's not a massive age gap, but there's life experience gap, and there's things that I've learned which I can impart. And so guys in their 20s and 30s love spending time with them. They might not know as much about me. I like to share, and I like to give them information about me, because that does develop a connection. I want to show them I'm not scared to show them who I am.
Yeah.
But the nature of the relationship means that it's a lot more about them in the mentoring than it is about me.
Yes, yes.
And so where there's like a mentoring type of relationship, there's going to be an imbalance, a natural imbalance that's quite healthy. But the deeper the friendship goes, the less that's got to happen.
The less that's got to happen.
You know, the closer that friendship is to you, the more there needs to be like a two-way street with how much we know about each other. You know, the hurt comes in later, or the disappointment. Even in close friendships, when you find someone out about something else out about your mate that they've never told you.
Oh yes.
And you kind of go like, well, why wouldn't you tell me something like that? Yeah. And then the natural next question is, well, was our friendship really worth that much? Maybe I put more value on it than they did. And all those questions, you know, then come in. But it very much depends on the nature of the relationship.
Yeah. I do like what you said about the mentor thing, because I think that's important for younger people, like to find someone that you can glean from, who's experienced. You know, it's super crucial for a young mind to be stimulated by thought that is informed by experience, you know, because then you will encounter those scenarios, and at least you have some kind of blueprints that you can sort of follow, or like sort of try and navigate that with. Now you're very obviously conscious of the fact that sharing allows for that relationship to feel a little bit two-way, and therefore deepening the trust. The reality is that not everyone is Tim, and not everyone understands that very well. But most people have mentees, you know, that they have under them. So what would be your advice, or like opinion on for like mentors that have people that they're mentoring in life? How can you try and deepen that relationship too, and try to create somewhat of a two-way, and how important that is?
Yeah, so I think, you know, as a mentor or as a life coach, there is a certain amount where your life, you got to be living by what you say. You know,
I like that.
And this is where you're going to get a little bit tripped up, is if you're trying to mentor guys and trying to impart stuff that you're not living yourself. Like, it's going to be very difficult to share stories. It's going to be very difficult to tell people about your life and disappointments that you've had, and the losses that you've had, and where you've made mistakes, if you haven't actually got on top of that stuff.
I like that.
You know, and so again, as a mentor, it comes down to the self-mastery side of this. Hey, have I got my life together? Like, let me mentor myself into some health here before I mentor someone else. Absolutely essential. And even beyond that, if we're going to put a faith perspective on this, it's going like, our mentoring's got to come from Jesus Christ. Like we can't self-mentor or like self-improve or self-help
Yeah.
Because we even have blind spots to our own issues sometimes.
Yes.
And we also don't have the complete blueprint on how to get ourselves out of that. And so, again, that's where friendships and that's where like your own relationship with Jesus is so important. But outside of that, you want to make sure that you're practicing what you preach, and then as a result of that, you can then be authentic in sharing your own life and your own experiences with other people. And there has to be that. You could be a really inspirational person. You could have the natural gift of the gab and the natural ability to encourage, but if you aren't able to share from your own life, then people will look at you and go, but how did you get there? And maybe that's an impossible journey for me. But if they know that, hey, these are the struggles you had, and so that you can connect with them and have empathy, but you know what they're going through,
Yes.
and you've come out on the other side of it, then there's hope for them.
Yes.
And obviously on top of that, then it's just don't be mentoring people unless you've got a genuine love for them and a genuine interest in lifting them up.
Yes, that's cool.
Don't do it for the bucks. Don't do it for anything else other than the fact that you're in it for the people that you're looking after.
That's really cool. Thank you, Tim. I just had a thought while you were talking with regards to friendships. So as a parent, which is what we're going to get into next as well. As a parent obviously has a lot of influence over the development of a child, whether that's by default where they live, there's already going to be influences that that will become them because of where they are. And by default, the parents being there, makes that a choice for the child to also live there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the parent decides which school to send the child to and all of that. The next question I want to pose is how involved can parents be in a healthy way, and how involved should parents be in the friendships that a child has, because I fully believe that until a child is 18, legally, they're still very vulnerable to the world, and there are realities out there that influence a young mind. And how involved should a parent actually be, or should be, in who a child becomes friends with, and how much time do they spend with those people? What's a healthy what would you say is a healthy standard of that?
Rick, I've got some thoughts on this, so I'll definitely share them. But my starting point is I'm still learning in this. I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, well, almost 10 and 7.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky one. Like parenting in today's world can be scary. It's a massive privilege and a massive blessing, but there's a lot of learning on the go as a parent, and I'm definitely not a perfect parent by a long shot. But from what I've learned, number one, you talk about, until 18, they're still very vulnerable. I would push that out even further and going, depending on your experiences and depending on what traumas you've experienced, like young and all of that vulnerability can go way out past high school.
Yeah.
I can tell you what myself and Sam have decided on as parents, and that is that we, as much as possible, want to encourage, form a genuine relationship with our boys. I know for me, it's so easy for me to just get into parenting mode.
Yeah.
With the pressures on nowadays, and just like how days can be quite tough and the circumstances we find ourselves in, sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, you switch into parenting mode, and it's a don't do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And it just becomes like you're giving instructions, and this person is not so much a person, more of a robot, and they just need to like obey. And it's tricky to sometimes stay out of that. But I mean, that's the one thing I'm particularly aware of in my own life, is that like I can easily slip into parent mode, and it shouldn't be parent mode. It should be I'm your father mode, or I'm your mother mode. And so, and that looks different to parent mode.
Yes,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's a I'm genuinely interested in you as a person.
That's cool. Yeah.
Not just my son or not just my kid.
Yeah.
As you as a person, I'm genuinely interested. And so the same principles apply from mentoring. Like I genuinely care for you. So what is the best thing going to be for you? And I generally want to know about your day. And so I'm going to sit down and go, hey, like what happened today? And you know, you're not yourself after school. What happened with your friends?
Yeah.
And ask questions around that. I think, you know, my sons are still quite young, but I think when you start moving into spaces of controlling friendships, as much as we want to protect our kids, like we can't be controlling over them. I think we get to have conversations with them. I think we get to go, tell me about this friend, and maybe share observations from your own side without judgment, but just go,
I like
is that the best choice of best friend that you've got? And what do you think about that? And actually go, I'm to a certain degree empowering you to think.
So, yeah, I like that.
And
yes.
my mentoring of you as a parent is not just telling you what's good and bad, but I'm training you to think.
I'm training you to yourself,
think through consequences, and think through behaviors, and think through friendships, and all of these things. And so it really is tough. I don't have a full answer in terms of where we step in. And obviously with the more serious things, I mean, I haven't even touched on really poor friendships that are guys who are like getting themselves into addiction early and things like that. Yeah, that's probably going to require a bit of a stronger hand or a more intervention as a parent, no doubt. You know, and I really feel for the parents who have had to go through that, or who are trying to navigate that. But for me, I think there's so much to be said for developing a genuine, authentic relationship with your child, or with each of your children. Not the same relationship for all three. It's not cookie cutter. It's I want to get to know this child and how he or she ticks, and how to appeal to them, because that's going to be different to the other one.
Absolutely.
And that requires time, and it requires investment. And so often, like, man, trying to find the energy for that can be tough, but it's so important. You know, and the strength of connection is what will keep dialogue open, and keep the ability to influence your children open when they get older.
Yes.
You know, because there's a certain point where parents feel like we've just lost all control.
Yeah.
You know, but if you have developed the connection over years, because we've said relationships take years, well, relationships with your children take years.
Yes.
You know, and we were to develop that over time, that when they get to start making their own decisions about life, and whether they choose certain behaviors or not, and who they date and all of that, when life gets really rocky, there's still a conversation that you can have with them, that it's not cut off now because they're not interested in hearing from you. You know, and so as much as there's like discipline and training a child in the way they should go, and all of that, like there's authentic relationship that has to be developed from some point, you know, and genuinely, hopefully it'll be like a lot earlier, so that you're not seen as just the parent when they're in their 20s. You're seen as at minimum a mentor, but
Yeah.
if at best like still a safe place
Yeah.
that I can go to and still receive some sound advice when I need it.
Yeah, I really like that, Tim. I learned this about myself and about reality very recently too. I was watching Esther interact with her little boy, and I
Yeah, beautiful
remember
boy
it
that day.
just yeah, it's very cool. Eh? I remember it just clicked, and then
Yeah.
I said to her, I was like, "Yo, actually, I see what you did there. You like you talking to this person as if they're a person, and like stimulating thought and getting to the reason behind they saying or doing something, and it you actually bringing out the human in them that." They're having a genuine experience, and I'm like, that's so incredible that you did that way. No,
Yeah.
I remember coming from a black family, and I'm not saying this for every black family. It's just it was my reality. Is that like a child doesn't speak up, a child doesn't, you're a child. You like
Should be
go
seen, not
interact
heard.
with children, go, you never get to like ask adults like real questions and or question an adult or like
Yeah. Yeah.
so sometimes it is important. That was it. The child was like, why should I do this? Why should I go and clean up that? They want to understand why, because it feels like it's just a command before that.
Yeah.
And then when you actually explain, and then yeah, it's taking care of your space so that it's nice and clean, and maybe when your friends come by, it's presentable, and give them reasoning, and then they actually in their head they go, oh, that sounds like an important thing to do, and then you've given them, you've stimulated understanding for the purpose that you're sending them out to, and it was so incredibly freeing for me to like, even now as an adult, seeing that, and I was like, oh, actually, and it changed my outlook on life entirely. If I have an idea or a plan, I don't, I don't necessarily need permission to do it. I can. I'm empowered to go and question something, to actually go out into the world and figure out why there's an injustice here. I can do that. I don't need some figure to tell me that I'm allowed to do that. And yeah, it gave me so much freedom to see that interaction, and I think that's what she's saying is that create authentic encounters with children so that they experience the world. They actually have a genuine experience. That's very important, rather than just following instructions the whole day. Or like
You're so right, Rick. I mean, I grew up in a fairly authoritarian and disciplinarian type environment as well. There wasn't there was instructions given and you obeyed or else. And so for me, having grown up in that and kind of processed that all, and on the back of that, like I still see some of that behavior trying to come up and trying to like break through, just because it's so ingrained, and still trying to like figure that out. But at the same time, that developing that genuine relationship, like you say, where sometimes they're going to question stuff and it's really stupid and you think you shouldn't be like, because we grew up in a generation where you don't question, it looks like disrespect. It looks like you're talking back when you question. That we never had those questions answered. And then we generally, like you said, now we're waiting for permission from someone to get on with our lives and make something of ourselves, but it's all up to us. And that just affects your workplace. It affects how you are in the work, all of that. But what I'm hoping is that for my boys, when they grow up, number one, home, mom and dad will always be a safe place. So I can have some stupid ideas, and I can go and talk to them about it, even if I don't think it's stupid. And they will hear me, and they will ask questions. And I think it really is important that you ask child questions. Ask, like, get their critical thinking going. Ask questions that they can then go, okay, I didn't think about that. Let me go and figure that out. And then at the same time, give them space to make mistakes. Now, having said that, there are boundaries.
Yes.
And boundaries are healthy for young kids. Like there certainly has to be a so far and no further. Like there is still that. We have a duty to protect our children. We have a duty to grow them up in a certain way. And so there are very, very clear, firm boundaries. You're not going past this, buddy. That's not happening. But to give them freedom to think and freedom to ask questions, and freedom then also feels like safety. And that's where kids find stability. For me, that's what I've experienced. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but developing a relationship and start trying to treat your children as if they are independent thinkers, which they are. But just bringing that earlier and go, cool, let's just have a basic conversation and asking questions to get them to start thinking about their own lives, and that really important.
Very important. Thank you, Tim. I think as we sort of close, I do want to make something clear with my family and how the dynamic that we had. It served the culture well, it served like my family, some of them that remain back home, it serves them well the way that they've been that we've been brought up. It is the contrast for me is that being in a separate culture, in a different culture now, I can actually see the big differences. I don't want to negate the teachings or the way that those my family raised me or like did certain things. There's definitely value in there. Like you said, there were certain boundaries. I think the takeaway here for people is that you figure out which should be yours and make good boundaries where you should, and allow for conversations where you think you should, and just find a nice, great balance for raising your children. The important thing I would say as a child, I would have appreciated from a parent always, is being stimulated in terms of conversation, thoughts, and ideas. Just create that genuine like relationship. I would even go as far as saying like friendship with your child, so that they feel seen, they feel empowered. And like I do have friends that I go to even now, and like I know that I want them to tell me the thing that I don't want to hear. So when you create that space, you create that too. Like, a child will come to you and they know that you will actually say to them no, and that's what they want to hear and be encouraged that way. There is also value in that, is what I'm trying to
100%, because boundaries also create safety.
Absolutely.
I think when I look back, and I mean, I wouldn't say I've done an extensive amount of work cross-culturally. I have done some. But, when I look across the cultures that I've worked with, and that's every culture that really exists here in South Africa, apart from languages that aren't spoken in KZN, I think we look at our parents in the previous generation, and I think they did the best they could with what they had.
Yes.
There wasn't an option even for them growing up to have a conversation with parents about this stuff, and so it's not like there was all of this resource on how to parent and all of that didn't exist. And putting your hand up and asking questions around like how you parent back then, I imagine would have been a lot tougher. There would be far less people to ask, but also like people would be looking at you really funny going, what, are you failing or something? I don't think there was a lot of freedom for that sort of thing. And so like, as much as I also grew up in a disciplinary home, I'm also like really grateful. I can remember times where like my dad would sit me down and they'll probably be like high school and ask me, and like in terms of making family decisions, like I didn't get to make the decision, but I got included in the process.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that like I got to know his thinking, and like budgets and planning and things like that. So there were, yeah, I do appreciate like a lot of that stuff. I think I had more of an advantage than most
That's
most
cool.
kids. And if I'm honest, I do appreciate the boundaries that were put down when we were
Yeah.
young. Like
That's
that. Without that, I don't know that I'd be sitting here today. And I'm being dead honest about that. But like I really appreciate your own authenticity and in just sharing your background as well. Yeah, I've learned something today.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for coming through. Yeah, I had such a like. It's amazing to hear your views, and I think the subject that we spoke on is like amazing and crucial for people to sort of understand. It's no one truly ever will, but it's the first step, or like
100%.
a step in the right direction. So
Yeah, 100%. And I really appreciate what you're doing here. If people can just take our conversation tonight and just work with basics, like it just, it puts them in the right path. And so thanks so much for bringing awareness to it and for being so interested and having a conversation with me. I really appreciate it. And I've had fun.
yeah, me too. Can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool.